Hello, everybody. It is your boy, Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming here today to give my impressions, my non-spoiler review of Endwalker for Final Fantasy XIV, the latest expansion. And what an expansion it was. This will be a non-spoiler review, which means I will not talk about specific story moments. I will not talk about the names or even themes of zones. I will not talk about any of that. I'm going to be as broad and generic as I possibly can when I'm talking about this, but I do want to critique it because there's so much good about this, and I just want to talk about it. Endwalker is incredible. Let's start from there. Honestly, I prefer Endwalker to Shadowbringers, but I don't think it blew it out of the water, but that's not a bad thing. Because I said Shadowbringers was one of the best video game stories ever told, which means Endwalker is one of the best stories ever told in the medium as well. And honestly, it's a bit better. It has some pacing issues, do not get me wrong. I think there's three main areas, funnily enough, one near the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. And they are pretty slow, and they do drag on just a little bit too long. But the story is so good, the moment they end, you don't care. And seriously, while the pacing is really good outside of those moments, even then, those specific moments, those areas where the pacing's slow, have serious and good payoff. So at least they aren't for nothing. Each zone is absolutely freaking gorgeous and unique aesthetically, and some of these zone themes are freaking earworms, and they are simply incredible. Oh my god, one of the zone themes in particular is my favorite zone theme in the entire game, but I'm not going to spoil which. Honestly, if you beat the MSQ, you probably know which one I'm talking about. Let's move on to the characters now, which is one of the most important parts of the story of Final Fantasy XIV, and the characters of Endwalker are as good as they always are in 14. The old ones are still great and lovable, especially our core cast of characters, and they get even more development in Endwalker, while new characters introduced are given sufficient time and effort to properly develop them, and to make us care about them. Now, I do think that the side characters in Shadowbringers are overall just a bit better than the ones in Endwalker, but they aren't bad by any means of the imagination. And it might just be a personal preference thing, since I really enjoyed the side characters of Shadowbringers. And by side characters, I want to be very specific here. I am talking characters on the level of the Chais, Feyaul, Lena, Runa, etc. Those characters. So not characters like Emmett, Selk, or any of the like. Endwalker has good characters, and has good side characters. But the ones in Shadowbringers, let's put it this way. Those were S tier for me, while most of the ones in Endwalker are a solid A or B plus tier. With some notable exceptions, who I absolutely adored and hope that they return to the story in the future. Now, let's talk about the story as a whole, because honestly, it's a work of art. Wonderful themes and messaging, and a story that rewards you, the player, for the work you put in. Especially during A Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers. It builds off of all you have done in those previous expansions to deliver a story that feels like a satisfying conclusion to that overarching plot. And honestly, we're going to have a lot of conversations in the community about which was better, Shadowbringers or Endwalker, and I want to make the argument that, even though I did say I prefer Endwalker, Endwalker is only as good as it was, and is only as good as it is, and will be remembered being, because of Shadowbringers, and because of how excellent Shadowbringers was. That is a synergy. It's a synergistic relationship between Endwalker and Shadowbringers, because the work that Shadowbringers did to the overall lore is the reason that Endwalker is as good as it is. Endwalker is emotional, it's thoughtful, and quite honestly, it's a landmark in video game storytelling. It shows what can be done in the video game medium, and especially the MMORPG genre, because for so long, there was this preconception that you can't tell a good story in an MMO, that for some reason the multiplayer aspect of the game would detract from it every time. And Final Fantasy XIV, along with SWTOR for some reasons, shows you it can be done. And it's just that the other games in the genre are bad examples of storytelling, and of doing storytelling justice and making good stories. Because Final Fantasy XIV has a good story, and it's arguably better than a lot of freaking other games. Especially ones that prioritize story. And Final Fantasy XIV shows you that stories within the medium of video games can be excellent. Because they can be. Because it gives you a different twist, and it gives you different tools in your tool belt as a storyteller to convey what you are trying to convey. By player agency, interactivity, and even the multiplayer elements of the game, they are able to convey story to you in a way and a method that no other medium can. And that to me is important, and that to me means something. And when a game can correctly do that and correctly make use of every tool in its kit is when it transcends even the medium, and it showcases, yes, this is what this medium can do, because it makes use of the fact that it's an interactive medium. You yourself, the player, are a character, and that doesn't just have to be for a plot device or just as a vehicle of storytelling. It can be a central pillar of the storytelling by having you be an actual character. And that means something because you can work off of that. You can work off of that and convey different themes and messages and have different ways to portray them. You can do in-depth character analyses like Final Fantasy XIV does. You have so much potential because it's a different medium. You can do things that no other medium can do because of that interactive aspect. And that to me means something. And when you're able to properly deliver on that is when you truly belong in the upper echelons of this medium, in my opinion. And Endwalker did that. It freaking did that because it concluded the story. I was holding off on putting Final Fantasy XIV in that upper echelon, in my favorite games of all time, because I wanted that conclusion. I wanted to know that this ending was good, and it delivered. And it did more than deliver. It was freaking near perfection. I want to talk about the end. The very end, because it's strong. No, seriously, the ending is actually freaking incredible. I didn't know how you could follow up the wonderful ends found in 5.0 and 5.3. But they not only followed them up. No. They delivered an arguably the best possible ending this story could have had. It's that good, it's that well written. There's a couple of minor issues I have, mainly in regards to pacing, where I thought a few scenes at the end were just a bit too fast. But literally, outside of that, this ending is as close to perfection as you can get. It is that good, it is that fulfilling, and it is that engaging. As a whole, when you take this ending as a whole, and especially the story as a whole, those minor issues with pacing that I have seem extremely minor. This story is powerful, the scenes are memorable, and the final fights in dungeon are so much fun. Mechanically and visually, they are just fun. Every component works. And at the end of it all, you just sit back and think about all you experienced, all you went through, and all you learned.